Hello, hello, and welcome, Doris, to
Well,
Studio 84.
thank you, Rafi.
It's lovely to have you here on Business Chronicles.
That's what you call it.
That's what we call it. But it's more than just Business Chronicles, especially with a guest such as yourself. There are so many layers to your wonderful self, and we want to know more about them.
Mm-hmm.
How are you today?
Today I'm well. I'm in a good space. I'm growing, I'm learning. Every day is a bit of an experience.
That's
Just the beginning of this year, it's been quite an experience already.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think 2025 will bring?
I'm looking forward to so much because I have these huge dreams for my business, for my personal life, for my children. Yeah, so my theme for this year is growth.
Okay.
And I'm seeing myself grow and I'm being intentional about that.
That sounds wonderful. And with the skill set that you have, growth certainly shouldn't be a problem. And I know you're the kind of person who doesn't want to grow alone.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you like to see others grow
That is
around
true.
you,
That
right?
is true.
Yes, I know that you're very generous when it comes to that. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do every day?
Well, what I do every day, what I do for work every day is run a company called Cela Consult. Cela Consult is a communications and PR firm, born out of my passion and my work for over 20 something years in the field of communications and PR. But after maybe 18 or so years of being in full-time employment, I realized that I was still not, there was something I needed to reach, to touch, and I just didn't feel like I was getting it in the field, in the employment world that I was in.
Okay.
So I took time out and took some time to think, like 2 years. Okay, it lasted longer than I would have loved to. But yeah, about 2 years just to think about what it is that I really wanted to do. And finally it came to me, and that Cela Consult, with the work that I'd been doing in communications and branding and public relations, that what I wanted to do mostly was to build brands.
Mm-hmm.
But how was I building those, which brands and how? Particularly not for profit organizations, or what we call NGOs over here. Because on my journey, I met a few NGOs and I realized they were so passionate about what they were doing. They were in the trenches, changing lives, dealing with the untouchables, the things we don't want to see in our sanitized world, and they were making a difference. But nobody knew about what they were doing. They are unsung heroes, soldiers soldiering on down there, doing so much, teaching, training, looking after vulnerable young girls that have been sexually abused, children with cancer, feeding, taking care of mothers who have nothing to take care of their own children. And nobody knew what they were doing, and yet they needed somebody to hear their voice and know what they were doing. So I realized that's where my heart lay, and so that's what I wake up to do every day, basically, in the long and short of it.
And from what you're telling me, is every story worth telling?
Oh yes,
Mm.
oh yes. Where do I start? Don't even get me
One
started.
of those
on the
questions.
Stories. Don't even get me started on the stories. But yes, Rafi, there are stories. They are stories that we've told in spaces, and people are in shock. They're like, "This is happening
Yeah,
in
okay,
Uganda."
yeah. The reality check, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. So the reality check that where we're in Kampala, even in our neighborhoods, just from your road and the lower part of your road, just at the bottom there's something going on there that you're just not aware of. There's a girl who's 12 and she's been pulled out of school, and a father and an uncle or somebody has abused her, and she's pregnant and been thrown out of the family because for some reason the mother sides with her husband or her brother and says this daughter, this girl, a girl she actually brought forth and and watched grow, says was the cause of her husband's, so it's painful. But yes, those stories need to get told, and people need to know that we need to do a lot of good out there. Just taking care of our own children in our little sanitized world is not going to help. If those children then meet those other ones who have been abused and underprivileged, and they've turned into something else that will then rock the society in which our nice, clean children live in.
Gosh, you've given me so much to think about, because I'm looking at it right now. Two things. Everything you do revolves around. Okay, I'm simplifying it by saying the storytelling, right? It's the art of communication.
Yes.
Communication is ancient. It started around fireplaces, right?
Yes.
Nowadays, of course, we have different ways and so many platforms on which to communicate.
True.
But those stories remain raw and authentic.
authentic.
And by telling those stories, we've just said it, it's a reality check. It's an opportunity to relate. And it's an opportunity to decide either to learn from it or to take action for it, right?
Action, yes.
And then at the same time, through this storytelling, and I have so many more questions for you, but one thing, does it help us also to pay it forward? In the sense, if I hear this story, even if I don't take action, but if I tell the story again, and the story is told again, and the story keeps on being told, is that already something when it comes down to your art of communication?
That is already something.
Okay.
And it's been proved in history. Like
Yeah.
you said, the story started around the fireplace. Then from the fireplace, we went into the different revolutions that happened. And all these revolutions came with something. And before we knew it, somebody had created a radio. And then we could hear these plays and theater like the kind you do on radio. Then before it, somebody created a box where we could see. But that story kept going and it kept revolving. That's why right now, if you hear a certain word or a certain name, it resonates with something for you, because what that person or company or whatever has done is that their story has just been continually told. And the more we pay it forward, the more we tell the story, then we sort of become ambassadors for the change, if it's a positive story and we want a change to happen. And we also begin to also change other people's lives who hear the story. For example, in our culture in Buganda, we literally survived and thrived on stories, riddles, and sayings.
Yeah.
And recently we were having a conversation with a friend and we were saying, but why would they tell us do not sweep at night? What did that mean? Then we thought, maybe they were just telling us to be more diligent about doing our housework during the day. And then someone says, why would they say don't cut your nails at night because you will invite evil spirits? And then we thought, maybe because the ancient way of cutting nails, they were using razor blades. You could cut yourself under the very dim light they were using. So Buganda, for example, is so rich that everything that you do, there'll be a saying to it. Everything you do will be a saying. So that's all part of storytelling.
Yes, yeah.
And that is the community that we've grown in. And that's what, even now, we need to go back to, as ancient as it was, using the modern technology that we have. Yeah. So
because it seems to me that from a child to an adult, we all love a story told, right? And it's easier possibly to relate, to want to learn,
of course,
to identify yourself. So it still has a lot of power to it.
It does.
Sometimes we don't even realize we're being told a story. Even a Coca-Cola ad will tell you a story, right? Before you know it, you've watched the whole ad because the little kid was walking through the snow, dropped this, was looking for and then you're waiting to see what happens and how the story ends, right? So very, very powerful. And now your professional background in communication.
Right.
You're not just a communications expert. What else are you?
The interesting thing about communication is that it throws you in so many fields. You have to learn to speak to the scientists. You have to learn to speak to the what are the complicated the aeronautic engineers. Because so anyway, apart from being a communications expert, and maybe these things come with the territory, I'm also a public speaker. I like to go into spaces and share what I've learned impart knowledge, grow other people. And now that sort of goes into mentoring as well, which I do in different ways, both on a personal basis and as part of different groups. I do emceeing work. So you have an event, I'll be there. I will talk to people. Panel discussions, moderated. I've moderated discussions on business and finance. I can tell you, I know the first thing about banking, but I have moderated a panel with bankers. I've moderated a panel with doctors, talking about fertility or infertility or, medical terms, but I'm there. I've moderated panels with lawyers. So this kind of communications throws you in that field, and you have to be on top of your game. So these are things that I need to read up. I need to be very well read. So I read widely and in so many fields. What else am I? I'm a mother. That's also something. I am a mother. I've been a mother for so many years. I started fostering children when I was a child myself, I think, or adopting kids. So I'm a mother. I am a wife. And
you're also an author.
I'm an author. Yes, I'm nominated and celebrated, and an author who won an award, the African Christian Authors Book Awards 2024. My book was nominated, and I was recognized as the first runner-up in a category that had over 13 authors from around East and Southern and Central Africa.
Wow.
So I'm an author, and I'm also, what's the other one? I'm also a language enthusiast. I speak a variety of languages. Once people ask me, how do you know that? Like, yeah, it's a gift that came directly from the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit gives some the gift of tongues. I got that one.
Oh, wow.
For me, those are the tongues I got. So I do speak quite a number of languages, but I'm also a trained translator, like really trained. I have a master's in translation from French to English.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many talents, and so beautifully packaged with this sparkling personality.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
And that charming smile, which I think
Rafi.
certainly adds to it, because I know you in different spaces. You and I have been friends for long. We share common business spaces, which have become friendships as well, watching each other grow, families grow, ups and downs and many different things put together. But I always see you as being so well composed. And as you said, well-read, conversant, because language is also technical. And you have the training in that as well.
Yes.
And so that's absolutely key. And I admire you for finding the time to then put together your own, to author books. I know it takes a lot of time. Writing does.
I also author other people's books.
You see? Yeah.
So I also have people who want to write, but they don't have the time. So I do ghostwriting for them or editing. Yeah. I want to bring their stories to life.
Are there enough words to tell all these stories? Sometimes I panic, when time passes me by. I'm like, well, will we manage to say it all?
We need days and hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my. So how all these services that you offer, because there's panelist, moderator, facilitator, translator, writer, MC. But then going back to Cela Consult. Cela Consult is also a space, a physical space, right?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Tell me more about that.
The work hub. You're talking about the work hub. Yes. So again, being all these things but not being employed by anybody meant that I am a consultant.
Okay.
And what do consultants do? They work on their own time, in their own spaces. Many consultants don't have a workplace. So one day I woke up and I thought, how about if I created a work environment for people who are self-employed? Because even after we leave the corporate world, we still need the perks of an office. We need the desk, we need the Wi-Fi, we need uninterrupted Wi-Fi, we need a printer, a photocopier. So you still want those same perks that you had in an office, which you can't exactly get in a restaurant.
Yeah.
So most people find a cafe and you find them at the back there and with their computers. So the Cela Consult Work Hub, which is located on Akamwesi Mall on Gayaza Road, for me, at that point, I was looking at people. The catchment area was people in along Gaza Road, Chanja, Chisasi, as far as Ntinda, Nalia, because we don't have a space like that. That is really purely, if I may, corporate enough for somebody to come and sit and work and have their meetings. So yeah, that's the work hub. It's a nice, quiet, beautiful space.
It is indeed. To all our listeners, truly, it's a space that has good feng shui, if I'm allowed the term. It's well set out. It has all the tools that you need, and you can find your space to concentrate and get the work done. Also, because it lends also to self-discipline, doesn't it? And the kind of professional privacy that you need, because I know you have also smaller rooms for meetings.
Exactly, yeah.
Because nothing wrong with sitting in a cafe, but there are times that I've participated in meetings that I was not meant to participate in because,
You're listening
in and you're like, oh, I wouldn't say that, You almost want to say, oh, you should have thought that through, buddy.
Yeah. So it also has a meeting room. So there's a meeting room, projector, and all those things. So even if you just said to somebody that, hey, come to my office space and you meet me there. You know how we are still very about somebody has to have a physical space that I can meet them. So we also get those ones who say, can I meet my people here? Can I have my meetings? They have their private, this is your office. Yes, it is. And yeah.
That's made me think. In Italian, we have a saying, when you say the space, the office, we have this saying about first investment should be brick. Brick and mortar.
Brick and mortar.
Do you have a similar saying? That they say you should invest in the structure.
Yeah.
And have structure for whatever it is you need to do. But I remember when I was young, I was like, hello, jewelry. Instead they were like, no. The first thing is the brick.
I hope now you've grown up and you're wiser.
Yeah, now a little, oh gosh, a couple of years older, none the wiser really, but I do know that the saying and the value for it is there. And so this is you now. But the journey that has brought you to being the communications expert that you are today, what journey did you work and walk before this?
Before that? It was a long one. Like I said, it's 20 plus years. But it was a journey for us as Christians. When I look back now, it was a journey that was filled with favor.
Okay.
A lot of favor. As a little girl, my dream was first job, United Nations. Didn't quite know what that meant, but I knew it meant I lived elsewhere, away from Uganda. I had to speak French, and it was fancy, whatever fancy was, but that for me. So at 9 years old, I went into French school. Not French school, but Alliance Française. So I started studying French when I was 9 years old, and made sure that every school I went to after that, French was offered at that school.
Okay.
So even my O-level school, there was French, but they didn't have it at A-level, so I changed A-level schools.
Okay, wow,
So continue with that. I went to university and majored in French. And then, indeed, my very first real job was at the United Nations Development Program at the age of 24.
Wow.
But again, it was favor. I was offering my translation services freely and just talking to people, I can translate for you. And I was doing all this work, and somebody just called me and said, Doris, my personal assistant just did a run on me. Can you come and fill in for her for a month? I said, oh, okay. And guess what his offer was? He said, would $3,000 work for you? I'm like, let me call you back. Got off the phone. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, then I call you back. I'm like, yeah, how long did you say it was for? Just know the 3 months turned out to be 4 years.
Wow.
In that space. So that was favor. And I stayed in that system, UN system, for another 6 years. From UNDP, moved into UNICEF, and then bounced, did short consultancies with most of them, UNHCR, UNFPA, and then did 2 years at the World Bank. In between there, I decided I wanted to come back to Uganda and serve my country. So I went into government as well, and I worked at the Uganda Investment Authority, which was also a whole other experience, very different from the United Nations, but also such a learning some of those for me were like defining moments for me, getting into government at a really young age at, may I say, senior executive level. At only 30, I was heading the communications and public relations department of the Uganda Investment Authority. And there I was supervising 40, 50, 45-year-olds, and they're supposed to defer to me. It was both humbling and also challenging, because I had to prove myself. I had to prove that I knew what I was doing. And even though they had been with the organization for 10 or so years and were 10 plus years older than me, didn't mean that I didn't know what I was doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was, while it was a government office, I was in by 7. I was reading up on things. I was studying. I was setting up programs, plans. The whole department had never existed before, so I had to create it from scratch. So that was also a very defining time for me. And from the Uganda Investment Authority, then we also set up what they now call the Uganda Free Zones Authority. I know people here prisons, but not prisons, it's free zones, like economic free zones. It also exists, and I was one of the pioneer people who set that up. And then from the Uganda Free Zones Authority, I finally think, when I say finally, I'm talking about this corporate world. I ended up at the Aga Khan Development Network, where I also served for a couple of years, managed the communications for the whole network in the entire East African region. Tough work, but very rewarding as well. Yeah, then I left, and that's when I decided to leave to find myself. You see where I started, and I said I needed that time. So when I left the Aga Khan Development Network, it took another 2 years just redefining, and that's when I fell into the NGO world, the local NGO world, 2 years later. And I realized, my God, this is where the work is.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's been the journey.
Wow, interesting. So, I mean, after telling everyone else's story for so long, you found the story that you wanted to tell.
I like how you put it. Yes.
Yes.
I found the story that I wanted to tell and to be a part of.
Yeah,
and be see it grow, see the organization grow, see the numbers grow, see the girls' lives changed. I felt that I was finally making that difference I had been craving for.
Yeah. Because I know you're passionate about women, young women, the youth, education, empowerment, right?
Those are my spaces.
Especially as now the story you were telling me about being in the investment authority, leave alone your age, but also your gender, I'm sure, because being a young lady manning a team, that is older, believes they have the experience, all those things play a big role.
That was an interesting
time. I can imagine, right? Yeah. Confronted with so many obstacles
that shouldn't stories?
that shouldn't have been there, right?
You want some stories on that one?
If there's anything you feel can go on the record.
I know. Like you said, all those things came into play. Yeah. But it was, I think that actually that's why I eventually had to leave. Okay. There was a situation where I was confronted with that now, full on.
Okay.
You're a woman, you're young, what do you know?
Yeah.
I know better than you, and you can't tell me anything. Just look at you. And I said, no, this is not a battle I want to fight.
Right, I was about to say, you pick your battles, right? Because there'll be repercussions, more than anything to our soul sometimes. You just have to decide, I suppose, what's worth
your
it.
mental health.
Yes.
Because for me, it's really, actually in some places, it's just been about my mental health. How do I feel? Why should I wake up in the morning dreading where I'm going?
Yeah,
because I like what I do.
Yeah.
And I really love getting up every morning with new zeal, new energy. But the moment I start to dread that place, I just know it's not a place for me anymore.
Yeah, no, and you don't want someone doing that, especially as you're all about the voice. So if and it has to come from within.
Yeah.
Right? So if that energy is being
telling people, and it's something I think I've learned over time, is that you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
So you have to be full yourself to be able to, for you to do what you do. So
absolutely, it's really, really, really important. My goodness, you've told us so much. Anything I want to ask you more. So I hope you'll come back for another chat.
Oh yes,
another episode.
But, yes, because we need to talk about those NGOs.
Yes. If you were to describe your work in 3 words, what would that be? Or what would those be? Let me get my grammar right. With the award-winning storyteller.
I would. Never mind. I make the same mistakes and I catch myself. I'm like, what did I say?
I was like, ooh.
If I were to describe my work in 3 words, fulfilling, engaging, and challenging. I
Oh.
hope they're all different and they're not
Yeah, no,
synonyms
sure.
of each other. It's fulfilling. It's challenging in the sense that when, say, an executive director of an NGO comes to you, they are looking at you like, I have finally found my answer. These are all my problems. And they lay them at your feet. And then you're thinking, I don't have all the answers, but this person expects me to have them. So then that's where the challenge comes in. So that challenge wakes me up. That challenge gets me going. I think we're talking earlier, and I told you my wake up time is 4 a.m. because that's the time I have to think about these people's challenges and how I can make them better. And then once you've gotten it down to a T and everything's gone through, you're like, wow. There's a sense of satisfaction just when you see how happy they are that this has turned out the way it has, and they're there, they're satisfied. You're like, yeah. It doesn't make you feel like, yeah, I'm the best, but you're like, thank you, Lord. I made a difference in this person's life. And for me, that's really what I want to do, to be able to ease and make things better for these vision bearers, because they bear so much. Their dreams are huge. You look at them and you're like, I would never dream something up like that, but you're dreaming it, we'll make it happen.
And then you're part of those ripples, right? Because once the word goes out, the story, then definitely it trickles down. It has that ripple effect. Exactly. So there's a lot that you're contributing. Yeah. So fulfilling, engaging, and challenging, right?
Yeah. And engaging, because you're in there. You're no longer an outsider, because once they tell you everything they want to tell you about their organization, you become one of them.
Yes, yeah.
So they start telling you, there is no way I do it. So when you're talking we. So we have to do this. we are going to. And you're thinking, no, I'm not part of it, but yes, we. So you become really part of it, and you can never really step away from it. Even after you leave, you're still a part of it. Their DNA is entrenched in you.
I truly know that about you. Anytime you can relate something, connect the dots, I see you do it. It's part of you by now, absolutely. Yeah. So what motivates you to keep on going?
What motivates me to keep on going? The fact that at the end of the day, there is a story that can be changed. There's a life. It
doesn't have to be the same, right? Yeah.
There's a life that, even in my own small, significant way, even if I just wrote a page of a report and it went somewhere, and the ripple effects of that page, and who looks at it and says, okay, I want to support it, I want to do this. I have seen Nalubega's story and I want to change Nalubega's life. And then one day we are writing a story about Nalubega. She's like this, and the next day she's graduating, she's blossoming, she's started a business. I'm like, wow, I just wrote a page or a paragraph of that report about Nalubega, and there she is.
And look at this new chapter.
And
right?
that's the new chapter. So there was an NGO that every time we had graduation, we, the staff members, would be in tears. We'd be in tears because we would remember how this girl came,
how it started,
where we started, how she came in all devastated from the abuse, from the neglect. She was suicidal and what. And now you're looking at her and she's like, Auntie, I'm going to start my business. Auntie, I found this location and I'm going to put my sewing machine here. And she has dreams. And when you met her, none of that. She was dead. She was finished. She was on the inside. She didn't have much to live for. So those little things, they get me up.
And it's so true, isn't it? When they say every book opens a world of dreams, and every story does that as well, right? So there's so many layers to what you're doing and what you're saying. And oh my goodness, we definitely need to have another session because I have lots more questions, but let me ask you one thing. If anyone is looking for you or they want to understand more about what you do, where would they find you? How can they reach out to you?
I'm on most social media pages for starters. So you can find me on X. Just type in Doris Kimuli. I'll come up. On TikTok, I think it's still Doris Kimuli, or D-Trees, which is also an interesting story for another day. LinkedIn is my favorite place right now.
Okay.
It's a very good place for storytelling, for making connections. So LinkedIn, Doris Mitti Kimuli, you'll find me. Instagram, I'm there not so much, but yeah, at least I'll see the message if somebody reaches out. But generally, I am based at Akamwesi Mall, Gayaza Road, where the Cela Work Hub is. So if you just right now, even if you went to Google and typed in Cela Work Hub, I'll come up number 1.
Perfect. So we know where to find you online and at the hub.
And physically at the hub.
We will find you.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining
Thank
us
you,
today.
Rafi.
And I hope you'll be happy to join us for another session very, very soon.
Sawa, sawa.
So let's keep telling and reading those stories. Let's keep
Let's
looking
read
for
the
those
stories.
Yes,
Let's read the stories.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you for telling them. Thank you for being someone else's voice.
Thank you.
And with so much passion.
Happy to be someone else's voice.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. This was a truly, for me, very touching episode here at Studio 84 Business Chronicles. Please follow us online as well. Until the next one.